Hello, hey there, everyone, and welcome back to the Brand Architect podcast. I've been away for a few weeks, but I'm back. I hope everyone is doing well. And today we're going to have yet another conversation and covering similar topics. We'll be talking about entrepreneurship, talking about marketing, and I have a very interesting guest today. So I would like to welcome Tim Conley. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how you doing?
Fine. You're the first male guest that I'm having that has better hair than I do. Just to note that. Okay, so yeah, I'll make a very short intro and sort of a backstory of this episode. I discovered you because my boss shared one of your videos where you were talking about marketing agencies and about marketing workshops for clients. And then, it kind of led me to your other videos. And I thought that the easiest way would be just, to ping you a message and have a more in-depth conversation. So welcome.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I can see from your LinkedIn profile that you coach digital creative advertising agency entrepreneurs on creating a smooth running business that attracts great clients,
hmm
which is, I think, something that all of us need. Great clients are always good. So
Uh,
so tell me how, maybe we should just go back from the very beginning and start your journey in terms of how did you end up in marketing and why did you choose that sphere specifically?
okay. I got into marketing because my .com failed. Back in the
Wow. Okay.
early days of the internet, I got into building websites and I dropped out of architecture school to pursue the internet and started building a startup. And it completely failed. It was horrible, and I had a brand new baby girl, and we had to rent out our nice home that we had. We had to rent it out to another young couple and move into a not very nice place just to be able to rebuild because of that failure. And in the process of it, I had a lot of friends in the tech space who said, "Hey, could you come and talk to us about all the things you did wrong?" And that started
Okay.
my,
Yeah.
so started my consulting career, was to just tell people how not to do what I did. And then one of the things that led to is I realized I needed to know how to get a customer. I knew how to build, I knew how to code a web app, I knew how to code a website, but I did not know how to get a customer. And that led me on a journey of sales and marketing, direct response marketing, and in the process of learning those things, all my friends in the tech space were having me do what I was learning in their business, and that's literally how I fell into marketing.
Okay, but it's very interesting because, I keep telling many people that, the easiest and fastest way to learn marketing is actually to get your hands dirty and experiment and try things and do things yourself. As obviously you still read and learn, but all that is not enough. Theoretically, you can be super ready about everything and know how it works, but until you have things in practice and until you actually realize that things not always go as smooth as planned and that there are always lots of different elements that are not written in books, you're not really gonna get really good at it, right? So
Definitely. It's
yeah.
like Mike Tyson's famous quote. I believe he actually said it, where about everyone has a plan going into the ring until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Business is that way, especially marketing and advertising. We have best practices. We have these ideas that typically work, but then we won't know how well they work or if they actually work until we go to the market and let the market punch us in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, it's very interesting you spoke about your journey starting with a failure, because I have, I have this realization that many success stories start from a certain type of failure at some point of that journey, where people get in a situation where they have their backs against the wall, and the only other way is to succeed to get out of the situation. So some unfortunately break, some carry on and actually succeed. So I feel like that point of make it, or sort of that's the only option is a very big motivator. How
Yes.
did you feel about it? Right? It was.
Yeah, for me, I already knew that I didn't do well as an employee for someone else. So going and getting a job, it's like, that's what I should do. Like I have a family to take care of. I should go get a job. I should do the right thing and do something more secure. But instead, I just decided I was going to figure it out. I was going to do whatever it took to actually figure out how to succeed in business.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. That thing where when people decide something and just stick to it long enough to see the decision becoming reality is very important. So I'm sure, like if you follow your journey, it will showcase different ideas and sort of real cases of many people's journeys where they are starting something, and in the very beginning, you mentioned your friends, but probably apart from your friends, no one else knew about you, and no one knew what you were offering exactly. And you were starting basically from scratch in terms of exposure, in terms of letting people know who you are, what you're doing, what you offer. So tell us about, where did you start? Like when you are in that lonely place, when you feel like you're online but you're talking to yourself, or when we launch our a podcast, when we start writing in a blog, it feels like we're talking to ourselves, right? And it's very discouraging, but you eventually have to stick to it long enough in order to get something in return. So very often you just give up because it feels awkward and it feels very scary just to talk to yourself, and you don't even know how long you have to do that. So what was your experience there?
Um, I think I've never stopped talking to myself. I still go through the same self doubts I think that I had when I got started. I don't know that certain elements of our personality or characteristics change even after we have proven success. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I've got something here in my hands that I've achieved, and yet my brain tells me, you can't do that next thing that you're going to do.
Yeah.
So I think that part, I don't know if it ever goes away. The imposter syndrome, the imposter syndrome. I don't know if it actually goes away. But for me, like I was a cheerleader for my own ideas, but I just luckily chose the right people to have around me. Because
Mm-hmm.
I see these stories all the time, usually from somebody trying to sell you something, where they say, my family and my friends, they said, no, don't do that thing that you want to do. Go get a job. I never had that. I never had
Okay.
anyone tell me, no, you can't do that. And so I think partly because I chose my friends well, and I had family members that were very DIY. They would figure their own thing out, and so they never said, "No, you should just go get a job." No one ever said that to me. So maybe I was just delusional, and because I never had anyone tell me that you shouldn't do that, so I just went off and did exactly what I wanted to do.
Okay. I mean, it sounds good. So, which were the first things that you had to address from the very beginning in order to get closer to success? Like, which were the things that you took care of first?
Sales. I had to learn how to sell. That was the very first thing that I learned. Because if you can't get a customer in a business, then you're not in business. You're playing at business, but you're not actually in business if no one's giving you any money. So that was the first thing I went out to learn. And I went into some sales training programs that actually had me sell stuff to other people. Insurance. I sold insurance. I sold cars. I sold all sorts of things while I was still trying to build up my marketing agency. I was doing all that, and then I would work on client projects every single night, and then after I worked on client projects, I would study to learn how to write copy and how to do all these other things. But the very first thing was learning how to sell to another human being.
Okay, how did it felt? Like, did it in the beginning, was it uncomfortable to get into sales and to talk to people and sort of I don't know. I mean, I because why I'm asking is, we have this misconception that, marketing and sales are always, in big corporations at least, marketing and sales are always not agreeing about stuff together. So it's always
Right.
sort of kind of, an argument, a battle between the two departments, and each one thinks that they are more important. And it's always kind of, some things there going on. And sales usually for marketing people is something that, I don't know, not the most favorite thing to get involved in, right? So how did you feel about sales?
Well, it was nerve-wracking. It was scary because you have to face rejection.
Yeah.
And in marketing, you face rejection, but it's not direct. It's
Yeah.
people you never meet. They just didn't click on your ad. They just didn't watch your commercial. They just didn't listen to your spot on the radio.
Yeah.
You just don't know. So you don't have that direct feedback between what it takes to say the right thing to get somebody to buy that a salesperson has to do. So a salesperson gets direct feedback, and you have to develop enough confidence in yourself to withstand hearing no over and over and over again. And I think that's a lesson every marketer should go through. I think they
Hmm.
should learn how to take a no
Yeah.
directly from a customer, because it makes you a better advertiser. It makes you a better marketer when you know exactly the things that the other person is going through because you're talking to them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Still nerve-wracking though, but yeah, I
Yes.
get your point. Definitely. So sales was the first thing that you dealt with. I mean, obviously before that, you knew what you were selling, right? So how do you figure out? Because I know many people who because they have different and very diverse skill set, it's very hard for them to actually, decide what they should be about, what they should package from their skill sets and
Hmm.
how to make an offer. How do you package it in a form and shape that you potentially have someone to buy it after that?
Right. Well, don't start with what you don't really start with what you have. Those are building blocks, sort of like Legos. That you've
Hmm.
got your skills are Legos,
Yeah.
but what your customer wants is not your skills. They want the result of those. So they want you to put those Legos together and give them a little car or, an X-Wing fighter or something. That's what they're actually wanting you to accomplish. So you have certain skills. Instead of going to the market and saying, please buy my skills and I'll do whatever you want that my skills might solve, you find out what their actual problem or desire is. And
Hmm.
then you determine, of my skills, of the things that I'm very capable of, what can I use to give them that result? And
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
where you start.
Okay, I get it. So basically, in the very beginning, your friend's desire was to learn about your mistakes so they could avoid it, right? That was
Yes.
their pain point. How, how
Yes.
to get a shortcut and how to bypass the mistakes that you've done already, and just not to make them themselves, basically.
Right.
Okay, makes sense. So, since we talked briefly about the skill sets, I'm just thinking like in the marketing space, you're working a lot with marketing agencies, and obviously like you also know about their clients in the marketing space. First of all, do you think there is any specific personality type that is better in marketing than some others?
Honestly, I don't think so. I've seen so many different kinds of people, very analytical people, very creative people,
Yeah,
and and they all find a way to succeed. It's that's I think the beauty about marketing and advertising is that there is no one path to success. And I think that's true in everything in life. There's no
yeah.
one path, one personality type that does better than another. If you have a modicum of creativity or the ability to analyze data, you you can succeed in marketing. And I've seen such a wide range. And that's actually, I think, it very encouraging that if you have an interest uh, in essentially selling something through advertising and marketing, then go for it.
Okay, makes sense. So, I mean, marketing agencies are at its core, it's a B2B business, right? And
Yes.
some people may argue that B2B marketing per se is not as exciting as the B2C one, and it has certain limitations maybe, but I can see that the space is changing a lot, and the B2B marketing has become bolder, it has become different. It's really, I mean, it's becoming very similar to B2C actually, because the argument is that you still sell to people, and those
Yes.
people are the decision makers in the businesses, right? Which are the things, I mean, are there still any differences, and if yes, which are the differences between marketing B2B and marketing B2C these days?
Um, I've been uh, I've been saying it's changing for 20 years. Uh, I, watching businesses try to sell to other businesses, and I kept saying back then, you're selling to people. We should be running ads. We should be doing marketing that resonates with the people themselves.
Yeah.
But one of the things that has stuck has and I think it's just a cultural thing inside of businesses is that people want to look professional. That's what they always say.
Yeah,
That's
especially
not
on
very
this on LinkedIn platform, right? Yeah,
right. That's not very professional. That's not professional. It's like, look at me.
yeah,
I have purposefully made myself look like this so I don't look professional. I do it because you can succeed by being yourself. You can succeed by being a little outrageous. You don't
yeah.
have to be professional. I don't think you've ever really had to be professional. But going back to the 1950s, when corporations really started dominating the world,
Hmm.
there was this idea that everybody had to wear a suit and tie and have the same haircut, and
Yeah.
that culture still persists because, and I think it persists because of the risk reward mechanism inside of companies. Inside
Yeah.
of companies, if you risk too much, you risk being fired. So there's the reward of succeeding is you get to keep your job. So why take a risk? Because you still
Yeah.
get to keep your job. I think that's the biggest thing holding back the whole B2B space. If B2B really just took a look at how consumer products are sold and they treated their own products the exact same way, then they would succeed. And I think Apple's a perfect example of how you can make something look amazing, because the same people who buy an iPhone are also the consumers are also the same people in purchasing departments who are purchasing phones for their company. So they
Yeah.
see those ads. It's the same commercial. It's the same promotion, and
Yeah.
they still decide whether or not they're going to pick iPhone based on how they feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, I think now, like we with all this marketing technology and marketing data that is available, it's so easy to get sidetracked by the numbers, the graphs, the charts, and sort of, forget the basic human aspect of the marketing, right? Because,
Right.
there are so many tools, many people get excited, especially like those marketers who are more towards the, technological side of things, more analytical marketers can get sidetracked and end up, analyzing the data and looking in the charts and being really attracted by all these different tools and services, which are sort of piling up on top of the other, and there are so
Right.
many variations of it, right? And then at some point you get so deep into that stuff that you really forget where it all started and what it's all about at its core, right? That you're talking to people, that, it's about creating relationships, that you want these people to feel something, and that, they basically decide about their what to get with feelings, and then justify it by logic. But logic comes
Right.
next. You have to first to provoke those feelings first, and then only back it up by the logic. So I feel like, yeah, you're absolutely correct that the human aspect is very important. And in B2B, that's what was happening. People were just, were trying to be very professional. They were trying to impress. They thought that by looking and acting professional, they raised their credibility. While these days we all know that, it's just not so as correlated as people think it is, because you can have someone with not very standard professional looks and with piercings and tattoos who can bring you way better results in whatever
Right.
you need to solve than the guy with a suit and tie, right?
Yes.
So yeah, makes sense. So going back to the sort of, to the marketing as a solution to your problems, and we sort of briefly spoke about sales, we spoke about marketing. So most of the clients who come to agencies, usually they come to agencies to get results, and in most cases those results are about growth. Those results are about user acquisition, about raising brand awareness. So those results are sort of things that can be measured later on, right? Those are the things that can be looked into, and people can see like whether you actually solved their problem, actually hit the KPIs, or you didn't.
Right.
How are you dealing with KPIs for clients? Because very often it's so unpredictable in advance. There are so many variations and variables of things that not always depend on you as a service provider, which may impact the end results. So when you speak to your clients, when you negotiate, and when this KPI issue comes in, because it's numbers, it's something clients always love during negotiations. How do you deal with that stuff?
Okay. There's a few issues here. As I'll use a story of a lady I was speaking to in Australia, And I just finished giving a talk. We were having lunch, and she asked me, all of my prospects and clients, they want a particular result.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her, it's like, well, what do you promise your prospects and your clients? And she says, this particular result.
Ah, okay.
Right? So obviously they are coming there because you said, I get people this particular result, and then they come and you have to be able to deliver that particular result. So the way you position yourself has a lot to do with what KPIs you actually deliver for a client. Most people they believe something about the market, and then they start advertising themselves, positioning themselves as that thing because it's their belief
Mm.
about the market, but they never tried to do anything else. They never tried to actually get to know the market to find out, are there other KPIs? Are there other results? Are there other desires they have that I'm actually better at fulfilling?
Yeah.
And that's a fundamental question that you should be looking at, because most people believe, because I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of agencies every year, and they believe that they have to get more leads or more sales, some form of conversion, and they don't ever touch branding. They don't ever touch the sides of a business
Mm-hmm.
that helps that business position themselves
Yeah.
to get more leads, to get more sales and more conversions. They stay away from it because they have a belief system so ingrained in them that they don't provide what the client really needs at a deeper level.
Yeah, I agree with you because there are things that they might need that no one really even sort of, thought that they might. Such as, for example, very often there are many companies who have a very well-built in-house marketing departments, but who need clarity and outside look. Who, the department has been in the project or in the company for so long that they just need a fresh look, fresh pair of eyes, who come from completely outside world and look at things for the first time to give them
Right.
feedback in terms of how it looks, right? And this is something that no one would really think that that's something valuable, but it really is. And there are people who are looking for that, but no one really offers it as something, right, like that. Or I don't know, I mean, it's becoming more popular these days, but before, for example, the personal branding of the executives of the company was not really a thing, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
already had the status, they already had the position, they already had the suit and the tie. Like, what else would they need? Like, what kind of personal branding we're talking about, right? But
Right.
now it's so much stuff that feels like they feel obliged to do, like create content, be active on their LinkedIn profile, and then they don't know what to do and how to deal with it and how to position themselves, or or making public speeches and things like that. So
Right.
then there is another thing that rolls out as something that they need to do. So there are lots of hidden things, I agree with you, that that are not very backed up by numbers and not directly linked to a service provider. But I guess that's why we have this differentiation between, I don't know, a mentor, a coach, a consultant, and then a service provider. Because sometimes, you need just someone, I don't know, to motivate you, or to just, keep you accountable, or stuff like that, which is more about relationship and more about, the results are not directly linked to your, to what you're doing. It's very hard to quantify that. But
Right. There's
yeah,
a saying that you can't read the label from the inside of the bottle.
yeah,
And that's really where I think any agency consultancy can shine, is to be able to come in from the outside and give them the details of the label.
yeah. That's a really nice saying. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. Absolutely. I mean, we touched slightly about the personal branding. You also mentioned something about safety and playing it safe so you don't get fired. Uh, I have a feeling that having a personal brand is very important because, if you have it at a certain level, um, you may not really feel endangered to get fired because even if you do, who cares, right? Like
Right.
your brand is strong enough for you to get another job if that's your choice, or for you to just have a legitimate excuse to do something on your own. So
Right.
do you think like it's very important, especially these days, for everyone to at least keep their personal brands at a minimum level even if they are employees?
I would say not at a minimum level. So we've got a few issues, and I love the fact that we're here on LinkedIn talking about this because uh, this is something that's incredibly important. LinkedIn will allow you to build an incredible personal brand that will carry you through career to career to career.
Yeah.
Many companies today still are afraid of their employees having a personal brand.
Yes.
Number one reason, employees with a personal brand can say something that can reflect poorly on the company. And then they're going
True.
to fire you because that's the culture we live in today. That the companies are scared to upset anyone in the world, so they just get rid of a good employee. The other side is employees that build their own audience don't need the employer anymore. And it
Yeah.
changes the dynamic inside the company. Instead of the company being so good that you don't want to leave, they are unwilling to change, and then you will leave.
Yeah.
That's one of the I've seen this over and over again. I try to get all of my clients to get everyone in their company to start building a personal brand and then interlinking those personal brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where so someone might in their off time just love cooking, and they're cooking and they're putting up recipes and even doing so on LinkedIn, right? And they're talking about doing and maybe even tying it to bringing something to the office that you've made, or a office picnic or something.
Yeah.
When we all get back to being human again and connecting to
Hopefully.
each
Yeah.
other, right? Because we in one of my businesses, one of our clients in that business, they one of their most successful promotions they ever did was the wife of the owner of the company made cookies, filmed herself
Mm-hmm.
making cookies. She was making cookies for her family and for the company,
Mm-hmm.
and their market loved it. They had the most engagement on that piece of content out of all the content that they had made. And it led to them actually getting more business. This is the power of personal brands because it's personal.
Yeah.
It connects. Businesses that don't connect at a human level are going to fail. They're going to struggle. They're going to struggle with getting more business, but they're also going to struggle at getting better employees. Getting
Yeah.
employees, they employees will look at social media accounts and take a look at other people who work at those accounts and see if those people are happy.
Yeah.
And
True.
so that right. So why not build it? Why not take advantage of the fact that we have all these tools and reward our teams for building their own personal brands? Sure, someone's going to become a rock star, and you may even have to pay them more money. Oh, that's terrible, right? Or they're going to go off on their own, or they're going to go to another company. Yes, you will miss out on that one person, but your cultural DNA will spread through the world. There's a documentary on, I think it's called The McKinsey Way, and it's a little disconcerting how much of McKinsey's cultural DNA is spread through governments and corporations around the world because they have such a strong company culture that goes
Mm-hmm.
into every single person in that company. If you can do that, then you magnify the power of all your social media marketing. Anything that you're reaching out on the company level gets magnified by having your team participate in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you because, if you follow this same logic that people follow people, then and resonate with people, then obviously, like, it's always, even on LinkedIn, even with our example, we have tested it so many times. The company page gets like a fraction of what our employees' personal profiles are getting, right? Even
Right.
if it's we have tested it before, even if it's identical content word by word with the same exactly message, if we post it on our personal profiles versus the company profile, it gets like a huge difference between how many
Yes.
people see it, how many people comment, etc. So that definitely is, I mean, we follow people, we don't follow company profiles
Right.
per se. We may have liked it, some of the company profiles, but not, I mean, it's not really because we want to follow them. In reality, it's because someone works there or someone asks you to do so, etc., etc. Usually those are the cases, but not really genuinely looking for to follow that profile specifically. So yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that's the thing that is very important, right? About we briefly sort of are segueing into content creation, into sort of messages, into online presence, and I started by saying that I discovered you by a video of yours that was shared to me, right, with me. So obviously, this is an organic inbound, you know. I would like to say free, but it's not free because you invest your money and effort into it. So it's
Right.
your time and effort into it. So it's not really free, but content creation and content as being part of the marketing, where you build your personal brand, where you promote your services, when you create this idea of what you are about. Have you started it a long time ago, and what was the reasoning behind it? Like, how hard it was to get out there and put yourself in front of the camera and talk to it, because doing solo videos is way harder than me now speaking to you, and I
Oh,
know that.
100 times harder. I actually enjoy doing interviews. I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews over the years. Love this approach because it's very interactive, and if one of us is losing our train of thought, or we're not we don't have anything clever to say, the other one can step in and say
Yeah.
something to keep the audience entertained. When you're doing it by yourself, you really have to bring it, and you have to plan out what you're doing. I it took about 3 years before I started my YouTube channel. A friend of mine, he started his YouTube channel, and I already said at that time, "Oh man, it's just kind of too late, isn't it? Like, YouTube is so saturated. Why would you go onto YouTube? It's so much
Mm.
harder to do video there." And he was doing his video, and it got better. He got better and better and better, and built a significant audience. And he kept, every time we talked, "Hey, when are you going to start doing it? When are you going to start doing it?"
We all
And
have
I'm
those
like,
friends, right? Yes.
"Yes, right." And he's like, "You've already had experience running podcasts. You've done these other things. Just turn on the camera and talk to the camera."
Yeah.
And I did. I resisted it for years, and
Yeah.
then one day I decided I'm just going to do it. I'll do it, and it was terrible, but I put it out there anyways. And I'm about to enter my third year of doing videos on YouTube, and So a full 2 years, a little over 2 years, I've been putting videos out onto YouTube on a fairly regular basis, and it's still hard.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. It's you know, it's one thing when you do a live stream and people don't expect it to be at a certain quality because it's raw, it's at the moment, we may have some
Yes.
hiccups, everyone knows that we haven't prepared and we haven't kind of, scripted this conversation. It's normal and it's obvious that we haven't. So if I end up, I don't know, losing train of thought or forgetting a word, it's okay and it's accepted. While during YouTube post-produced videos, it's something that is absolutely unexcusable, right?
Yes.
So I get that it's hard. It's also very hard to keep consistently producing content on regular basis for years and sticking to it, right?
Yes.
um, in the beginning, when you didn't have a big audience yet, when you were just starting, what kept you just continuing doing and moving it forward? Because you always have these days, right? Every one of us have these days of, oh, okay, I don't really feel like doing it today, I'll just skip this week, or I'll just skip today and I'll do it later, and then we never
Right.
actually do it.
Um, I think fundamentally I'm an optimist. So I believe tomorrow is going to be better than yesterday.
Hmm.
I just have that view of the world. So when I had 100 subscribers, I was pretty sure I was going to have 101 the next day. Like I again, maybe because I'm just delusional, but I had the experience before. I had already had podcasts.
Yeah.
I had helped a lot of other companies get their own content strategies going, and the consistency, especially if you are not just being consistent, because you can be consistently bad. We need to get we
It's
need to
true.
get consistently better. And
Yeah.
because you go back to my first audios that I ever did, and they were excruciatingly bad. And
Yeah.
but then they got better because I worked at it, and I practiced and built the skill of being able to speak on a podcast. And then I added video, and I was terrible with video, and then I got
Yeah.
better at it. And that's even with the power of editing. I was terrible. And so I just kept working at it because of having been through the experience of building an audience before. I
Yeah.
knew in the beginning that it was going to be hard. But I have another belief system that started early in my career. I heard this phrase, little hinges swing big doors.
Yeah.
And that
Sure.
phrase has really transformed me. So, out of 100 subscribers, what if one of those became one of my clients, and I made multiple five figures off of that? Would that be worth those 100 people listening or watching my video?
Yeah.
Would that be worth it? What if I had 250 and I got two, right? That belief system.
Yeah.
I didn't need a gigantic audience. I did not need the fame and all that a big audience comes from.
Yeah.
I just needed enough to accomplish my personal goals.
Yeah. Makes sense. I'm gonna pull up a comment. You have a compliment about your
Oh,
YouTube
awesome.
covers. So very catchy covers, and what Andrew likes is that they each appear to address specific points, questions we all might want to answers to. So I guess this is I'll say this, and I'll go back to your point about being terrible, because I have a story about that. But I think the specific points and the questions that the viewer would like to get an answer to is also an element of the fact that you know your viewers really well, because you can predict what they would like to see, and that's very important. In terms
Right.
of being terrible, it just reminded me of my experience when I was launching my podcast. It was purely audio in the very beginning, and I had to record this very first episode, which would be just just couple of minutes long, very short, just telling what the podcast is going to be about and that I'm launching it, and very like simple stuff, who I am, etc. Stuff I'm supposed to know, right?
Right.
And I recorded and deleted and re-recorded and deleted for hours and hours in a row for those 2 minutes. And I was listening to it. I hated my voice, obviously. I hated this, I hated that. Like, it wasn't really happening. Then I spoke with a friend of mine who had a podcast for almost a year already. And he told me, like, you do two things, first of all. You pick up the podcasters that you really like and listen to. You go back in the archives and you listen to their very first episodes. And I bet they will be terrible. So, you
Yes.
just do that to feel that everyone is terrible in the beginning, and it doesn't matter because you've never heard that first episode of that person, right? Because, they've done 200 after that. And the second thing you do is you give me a promise that whatever you record now, you just put it out the way it is. You don't touch it. You don't even listen to it. You just push it out. And I'm grateful. I spoke with the guy because that's what I did. And really, I don't think anyone ever listens to that first episode from 7 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, everyone, I went there and I checked, and really everyone's first episode was horrible. So yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so since we're talking content, what do you think these days? Things are changing so fast. Like when I'm talking about my podcast, it was launched about 7 years ago. I had to actually explain to people what a podcast was, how they were supposed to listen to it, how to download the app. It was mainly the Apple Podcasts. Back then it was iTunes.
Right.
It was very, very early days. Now it's like, podcast is something everyone launches these days, and it's like the most buzzing thing. Before, the live stream was something new and fresh. Now it's just a regular thing as well. So what do you think, taking into account all these changes and this horrible year that sort of changed everyone's lifestyle in terms of production of content as well as consumption of content and everything else? What is the thing now that people should think about while thinking content in marketing? What is it? Is there something new that emerges? Is it something that is more preferable these days versus the other format? Like, how do you choose what to produce these days? Because there are so many options out there.
That's all a confusing part, but it's also the beautiful part, is that you get to pick what you're good at, what you have an aptitude for. If you are deathly afraid of being on video, then write. And even better is have someone else write for you. Have them interview you. I'm a terrible writer. You can hear my grammar is horrendous, and yet I've written a lot of blog posts over the years. Granted, I only physically wrote maybe half of them. The other half, I was interviewed, and these are like all my best ones are the ones that were written by someone else. They interviewed me and then they wrote it. And it was my ideas, but with somebody who could actually do English. So that was a fantastic thing. And that's one of those things that you can do. You don't have to be amazing at any one thing, but pick the one that you feel that you have a grasp over. If you've got decent grammar, you can write, you can be fairly concise with your words, then use the written format. If you are willing to just step out a little bit more. Get an inexpensive microphone and learn a little bit about podcasting. Then share your ideas through voice. If you are a little more courageous, or you just get cajoled into doing it like I did, then do video. And the amazing thing, like Gary Vee says, is that video is is our currently our highest fidelity medium, which
Yeah.
can then be turned into multiple things.
Anything
We're
else? Yeah.
doing video now, but you also mentioned that this is going to go on to a podcast. So there'll be an
Yeah.
audio section of it. Then, if you wanted, you could take clips, you could take little segments from what we've talked about and put those out if you
Yeah.
wanted to. You could take some of the words and turn those into
Quotes. Yep.
quote memes or something.
Yeah.
Like you could even make an article out of the topics that we covered. Like these are all if you want to go full on, if you're a company that wants to spend money on content creation, I think you should go to the highest fidelity medium because of all the
Start
things that can
going.
be built underneath it.
Yeah,
If you're
absolutely.
and as
Go
a
ahead.
personal brand, pick the one that you are willing to stick to and learn the skills of.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. I guess to wrap this up, I mean, obviously we started from the very beginning of your journey. We sort of covered all the different elements. If you had to pick like just a couple of things that you feel like contributed most to your success, what would those be?
Um, One, I think, I've been joking and saying that, maybe I'm a little delusional, but I think that delusional optimism is necessary because it's hard. It's hard to succeed. That's why there's so few people that succeed, is that you
Yeah.
have to get past the hard parts. And the other is I don't set gigantic goals. I create systems where I
Mm-hmm.
just follow along every day as long as I do a little bit, as long as I do a little bit towards this vision that I have of my future, I'll get there. I don't know when I'll get there. I don't have a specific date. I don't have a specific outcome that it'll look like. I just know that there's a horizon out there. And as long as I keep sailing towards that horizon, I will get what I want out of life.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a very nice approach because it's kind of it's positive, it's very optimistic, but at the same time it's very real in terms of setting it into smaller pieces and just taking it one step at a time. It's
Right.
great. So for people who have been watching this live stream and later on will be listening to the podcast in the audio version. If they need to find you, where is the best place to go?
Best place would be YouTube. And that's just YouTube/Tim Conley, TimConley. And the other, if you're here on LinkedIn, then, follow me right here on LinkedIn. And that's /Tim411.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you know where to find Tim. Tim, thanks a lot for spending this time with us. It was really nice to speak to you. So
It's a pleasure.
So yeah, I mean, to everyone who was watching and who'll be listening, thank you so much for being around. Thank you so much for your support. If you have time, please leave a review. That would really help the podcast grow. And I'll meet you very soon with another guest. Take care, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.